welcome to the Au5 live stream. We want to first really say thank you for supporting Gravitas Create, supporting Au5, supporting the music, being part of the Gravitas community. It means a lot to us. Our mission with Gravitas Create is really to connect and educate and create a community around the music and provide value, music production tools, education, and we're really excited. This is basically our 1-year anniversary today. We really launched the site in January 2017, and when we got going, we started doing these production challenges. One thing led to the next, and now the Gravitas Create Facebook group has really been growing a lot. And the vision with that, and why we're here today, and one of the reasons that I really wanted to create Gravitas Create, was to allow the extremely talented artists and producers on Gravitas to connect with the music production community and not just passively put out the music and have people listen, but allow them to share their stems, their presets, their sounds, and really share the joy of making music, sound design, creating drums, all, music, just the beauty of writing music. And so we worked with Austin and on his Freefall EP, where he collaborated with Christina Soto, and it was right from the get-go really a successful music release. And then we did a remix competition, and we had several hundred entries into that, and the quality was great. And so then we released the Freefall remix EP, and I'm going to link to both of those in the chat. Or actually, Garrett, when I say that, I guess if you will, but I got these right here. So so you guys feel free to check those out. Those are free to download. And so yeah, without further ado, I just want to introduce, I guess first, a couple of rules. We want, if you're not on the Gravitas Create team or Au5 Austin, please mute yourself and mute the audio, mute your audio and your video. We only have so much bandwidth, and we want everybody to be able to hear what Austin's saying. If for some reason you can't hear us, then there's a help link for Zoom. Pretty much, you'll just need to be setting your audio preferences in Zoom. So yeah, without further ado, I want to introduce the Gravitas Create team. We've got Garrett Moore, Nick Wolf, who goes by Wolfie Wolf, Kaylee Marks, who's one half of Baseline Drift, myself, Jesse Breda, founder of Gravitas and Gravitas Create, and the man of the hour, Austin Collins, Au5. Thank you for joining us, man. We're really excited and appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. This is going to be fun. I'm stoked.
So this all started with putting out this sample pack, and you're such an engaging producer. Like you've done a couple in the DAWs with Multiplier and Christian, and I think people are just really hungry to pick your brain, and so we thought this would be a fun way to connect with everybody. And so yeah, we'll kind of jump right into it. Again, anybody that's here with us right now, you can feel free to drop your own questions, but we have a number of questions that we thought would be a really a good way to kick off the event. So I think one thing, one of the coolest things I think that happens is, in any discipline, you'll work, and then something will click. So what was one of your biggest aha moments when you started producing, and it kind of was like, whoa, that really got you going?
This is kind of this is kind of a tough question, because technically when I first started producing was when I was about, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was using a MIDI sequencing program called EasyBeat, which I don't think it exists anymore. But it was when I discovered the piano roll and the ability to create like really intricate arps and melodies without actually having to play them, because I've been playing piano since I was 4, and I've always had these melodic ideas and stuff in my head, but I just did not really have the skill to play it, let alone record it that early in time. So I mean, it seems like a very obvious like thing in the producer community, like piano roll, making arps, big whoop. But I mean, when I was 8 years old, and when I first discovered that, that was like, wow, this is next level. This is opening up this is just opening everything up for me. But I guess to be a little bit more relevant, one of the more recent aha moments, which I guess were still quite a while ago, when I started to make like dance music, like when I started to realize like this is what I actually want to do potentially for a career. Like I'm definitely passionate about making like trance and dubstep and stuff. Was when I discovered sidechain compression. That was pretty much like the main thing that really changed the game for me, because it wasn't necessary, like it was something that I perceived but didn't realize was an actual like separate thing. I just thought it was an effect of like how something is mixed or how something is mastered, or if it was just a psychoacoustic effect. I really didn't know. But once I discovered that, okay, this is actually a distinct thing that cuts out volume of instruments every time a drum hits to create the illusion of loud and dynamic sounding drums, then yeah, once I started experimenting with that, I was like, there's nothing that can get in my way when it comes to like making something that sounds impactful and loud now. And then I guess a little bit more recently, one of the huge leaps particularly when I first started making like dubstep, was filter automation. I discovered how to use a bandpass filter with some dry signal reintroduced back into it, and if I sweeped the frequency knob, it created like a growl, and that was like super cool to me. And that kind of, yeah.
Was that just through trial and error that you discovered that, or did you find that through tutorials or something like that?
Well, I knew that there were like, I knew that you could do such a thing. I knew that you could modulate filters and stuff within synths, but when it came to audio, like I was using Logic at the time, and automations were not as easy or straightforward or obvious as in Ableton. And I think it was just something I discovered myself. I was using FabFilter, what was it called? FabFilter Simplon, I think. It was like a 2-band, just a basic filter, and had a wet dry on it, and it allowed you to move like through the frequency ranges and change the resonance. And I was just doing it with the mouse at first, and then I was like, wait a minute, I can, if I go into automations, I can automate this and actually create a much more dynamic effect on this dry sounding bass that I had, and turn it into like a very morphing dynamic growl. And I think one of the first instances I actually used that was my song Depths of Ice 2 on Iconoclast EP. This is like back in this is back in like 2012 actually. Yeah.
Nice. All right, well, next question. So what have been some of the most impactful changes you have made to enhance your workflow and speed up the process?
Number one thing, switch from Logic to Ableton. Or for me, it was switching from Logic to Ableton. I was using Logic for about 9 years, since I was like 13, until just a few years ago. I switched over to Ableton, and it is like the DAW that was created for making the kind of music that we are creating, in my opinion, at least. Man, just the fact that there is the ability to right-click any parameter and just draw your automation, you're saving so much time. The fact that you can put custom folders into the browser, hit Command F, and just type in what you're searching for and have it come up, so much faster. Same with plugins. Like I remember in Logic, I knew I would be in the flow, be in the creative flow, and I knew that I would need this one plugin, and so I would open up the drop down and go through this one list, which that led to another list, which led to another list, and then by the time I found, or by the time like I would have found what I was looking for, I like either lose the flow or completely forget what I'm looking for, and it's just same thing with automations and logics. It's just like there's no easy way to just access them just on a whim, but with Ableton you can. It's just there's the search function, and that was game changing for me. That's the
Yeah, they have a design principle at Ableton where everything has to be X amount of clicks away, and they do not allow you to open up a new window. It's like they sat there and they had the, I guess, the luxury, but the intelligence to go, what do we dislike the most about the things here, and how can we fix that? And it really did change the game. So
yeah, that's a brilliant philosophy.
yeah, I mean, it's really about user interface and the user experience, and that's something that I do as part of my job for web design and other things. And it's such an, sometimes the elegance or the beauty of those solutions, like it can be really challenging to get it, but once it's there, it's like, wow, that really makes it so you're making things simple. So
Are you going to be switching over to Ableton 10?
Once I upgrade my operating system, I'm still running I think Yosemite. Yeah, I think I'm still running Yosemite, and like I have the beta, but I can't open it because my operating system's not up to date. I don't want to switch to High Sierra because the new file system, I did that with my my MacBook Air, and I have compatibility problems. Thank God it wasn't with the one that I do business on. But yeah, I'm thinking probably the middle ground would be Sierra if it's compatible with that. Retain the file system, keep the compatibility with other things, and yeah, then I can try it out. I did try it at Mr. Bill actually showed me back in, I think it was November or October. Like, I don't know, he had like a pretty early version of it. And he showed me and I was like, wow, this is really cool. They definitely implemented some things that like finally, like I'm really glad that they did, like the ability to see, like select multiple clips and see the different MIDI notes in multiple, like over multiple tracks.
yeah,
with overlapping clips. That's huge. That's something that Logic had that I kind of missed. But of course, like it wasn't. I just adapted to it. Overall, I think there's still a lot of things that Ableton could improve on, but just the difference between going from Logic to Ableton for me is like I really can't complain. I don't have anything to complain about. Ultimately, it's just nitpicky stuff at this point. But yeah, that said, I kind of wanted all of my deadlines and important business stuff out of the way first before I do a operating system upgrade just for Ableton 10. I mean, Ableton 9 is working great for me so far. It might be.
Definitely. Cool. Next question. So what mixing issues do most beginner producers make but could fix easily? And we may want to just expand that to, what issues or things you see common for people starting off that you maybe little tools and tricks that you've come up with or found.
Gotcha. So I think one of the main things is probably, well, that I hear often when people submit music to me, when relatively new producers submit music to me, is they tend to like to use a lot of multi-band compression, almost as a way to, and I'm not saying everyone, but I'm just generalizing the majority of song submissions that I hear. There's this excessive use of multi-band compression, and it gives this very bloated, harsh sound over the entire track. And I find that in most cases, you can be just using simple single band compression and EQ if they're used in the right ways, and completely negate the need for multiband compression whatsoever. I personally don't really use multiband compression as far as a mix tool almost ever, unless I'm using like multiband sidechaining to like create cuts in certain instruments to like leave room for vocals or like a lead or something. But as far as a mixed, like I pretty much only use multiband compression these days as like a sound design tool to make like a single sound, like transform the sound of a single sound. Yeah, almost everything you can fix with just simple EQing, single band compression, and sometimes harmonic excitation is necessary. But yeah, another thing is, and this kind of plays into the first thing I was talking about with multiband compression, is don't mix or like don't produce with anything on your master chain. Like keep that dry. If anything, just put a limiter on there, but make sure you have a ton of headroom just in case you're doing sound design and something is extremely loud and you don't want to damage your ears. Yeah, you don't want to have anything that's actually doing any maximization or any compression during the production process, or unless it's something where you're like unless it's something where you are using like room correction, like a compensation EQ or something like that to compensate for your studio or your speakers. But yeah, you really don't want to ever use any kind of like dynamics-based effects or even like time-based effects, especially not time-based effects on your master chain, because I don't really know how to. It's just pretty much like the number one rule for me. You want to hear things as pure as they are coming out. Anything that is like pre-processed, and if you're mixing into like a multi-band compressor, if you're trying to do like EQing before a multi-band compressor that's already on it, you're just not going to get an accurate sense of dynamics and frequency range. Not to mention you're probably going to get noise fatigue much faster. Yeah. Oh, and let's see what else. Yeah, a couple other common things would be like that I hear would be very transient sounding drums, where like the transient is like 12 dB louder than everything else. That's an exaggeration, but oftentimes when you're using headphones, if someone's mixing with headphones and doesn't have like actual monitors or speakers to listen on, it's really easy to get a false sense of how loud a transient of like a drum hit, for instance, is, because if you have something that is like a 5 millisecond transient that's like 10 decibels above everything else, through headphones, your ears are not necessarily going to perceive that as something loud. But if you're using monitors, for instance, the natural diffusion of the room is going to extend. It's going to enable your perception of that transient to be. It's going to enable you to perceive that transient better because there is natural diffusion of the room. And yeah, that's just another instance where, like, if you're using headphones, it's really easy to have your drums too quiet or too loud or too transient. I often find that if you need punchy drums, make sure you're doing like some kind of soft clipping on it, because then soft clipping as opposed to like limiting will allow you to retain like the snappiness and the tonal character of the transient, but not going over zero, while a limiter would pretty much just make the drum sound soft. Yeah, I kind of went in on that, but
good one. You're so technical, man. I love it. Thank you.
They're just things that I hear quite often that bother me.
I would like to add, just as less of a technical producer and more of like doing A&R and running a label. For me, what I find oftentimes is simple is better. Like having one primary sound and one focus at a time. I think there's a tutorial where they break down like Opio's song, and we as humans can really only take in so much. And so when I get songs that are just maximalized, that oftentimes doesn't work on the dance floor. It's really hard to mix and master those things. I mean, I think you have you're a pretty full sound, but usually you're almost always you have one driving point. Like, this is what you should be paying attention to. So I think keeping that in mind and writing simply, I think as newer producers kind of want to fill up with everything and put more and more things into the mix, and oftentimes the answer is to pull back and put in less.
Oh yeah, I am very familiar. I mean, personally, that is something that I am still inclined to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of something that I've been, over the years, I've been trying to, I guess I like to think of it as like eloquence, like saying as much as possible with as little words as possible. And if that can be conveyed musically, then you just have so much more space and headroom, and all of this other stuff is going to make the songwriting process, or make the mix down and production process so much easier when you have less stuff to deal with, because the stuff that you are using is made properly and is essentially saying what it needs to say right from the start.
Right.
Instead of like trying to fix something with layering or adding more plugins. It gets to the point where you have to draw the line, and sometimes it's best to just like start from the source of the sound. If the source of the sound is not right, chances are it's just going to become exponentially harder to make it sound right.
Got it. I agree. So, I think a lot of people, have struggles when they're producing or really getting after any discipline. What are some things that you struggle with currently, and what kind of headspace or mental tricks do you do to overcome that?
Maintaining a social life. It's sort of a joke, but at the same time, not really, because like I am pretty obsessive with just like being reclusive and working on music. I don't know. It's just something that I've loved to do for most of my life. I would much rather, more often than not, I'd rather like explore inwardly than like, go out to clubs or like chill with people every day or a party or something like that. So I don't necessarily know if it's a challenge, but I think finding a balance is important.
Yeah. I mean, would you say that you spend too much time sitting, or you spend too much time in front of the computer, and you wish you would kind of get out more or get more exercise? I mean, I think it's natural. There's introverts and extroverts, and I don't find that I feel like yourself, you understand who you are and what works for you. I don't think there's any, I wouldn't call that a problem, but you feel like you get enough, you get out enough, you get.
Well, I think having a routine is important, and that's sort of what I've been especially since like living alone, getting into like a routine, something that is like for instance, I wake up, I try not to use the internet in any way, or even just electronic devices. Like I think doing yoga or some kind of physical exercise, like mild exercise every day, is really important, because it allows, I find that it allows you to, it's almost like it allocates space for more energy to flow in your body. If I don't stretch or exercise for a while, I start to feel myself like my breathing gets more shallow. My body starts to ache more. I feel less loose, and how my body feels dictates how I feel emotionally, which dictates how I process things and interpret things mentally. And if I am creating music and experiencing these physical and emotional blockages, then it's going to inhibit me on a conceptual and intellectual level. And so, yeah, I think it's important to just be good to your body, eat good food. It's important to put your energy towards things that are going to give back, and not just waste them on like bad habits or like drugs or things that will drain you. Because like the more energy that I find, the more energy that I have, I can just think deeper, and that's really why I'm it's like if I wasn't able to keep digging deeper and penetrating into this like sea of potential, then I wouldn't be going anywhere. I would just be doing the same thing. I'd be in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately not really fulfilling. It's just comfortable and safe.
Cool. I think that ties into the next question, and I think there's a lot there. This is a big question, so just feel free to just go with it. Is why do you make music? Where do you? I mean, it seems like you wake up every day and you want to make some music. Do you know where that comes from? Has it always been there? Is it something that as you've developed over time, it's grown?
That is like the master question. I've been interested in music. I've been intrigued by music literally my whole life, since before I can remember. My parents would always play music in the house ever since I was born. I think that in itself played a big role in my interest in music, although it's hard to say. Maybe someone that is just not inclined. I'm not going to get into the philosophy of like who I could be without conditioning, but I guess going back to the question, why I make music is just making art in general is a cathartic experience. It feels like it is pushing me along in life, not necessarily from like a career aspect, but just from like an emotional and intellectual developmental aspect. It's a way for me to like, I find that music and art, particularly like listening and also expressing and creating, is a way for me to explore just the nature of the universe and the nature of myself and my own psyche. And if I don't make music or art for like a certain period of time, I start to feel unstable. Like I start to feel like there's no purpose to what to living. Things just seem random and chaotic, and I start to get pretty anxious or depressed. But once I start expressing myself, whether it be through like visual art or writing something or just even like doing sound design or like playing an instrument, it's almost like it is aligning. I don't know. Creating music is making sound. It's putting sound into order, and I find the actual physical process of doing that makes me feel like it puts my thoughts and emotions into order. Like it makes everything harmonize more, if that makes sense.
So like the process of creating it, that focus and that intention allows you to sort of let go of the chaos of the world and kind of feel aligned and feel at peace.
Yeah. In a way, it's almost like the chaos. There is no external chaos. It's only how I'm interpreting the external world. It's like the chaos is all internal. And if I can express myself in some cohesive way, it somehow turns that chaos into order internally. Yeah. And a big part of it has to do with like, if I don't feel good about myself, it's kind of inducive both ways. It's like, if I don't feel good about myself, anything that I create, I'm not really going to feel good about. So I think it's important to have, like I said in the previous question, I think it's important to like be good to yourself, like physically, which inspire or which reflects how you are emotionally healthy, which reflects how you are mentally healthy, and it goes in the opposite direction as well. I think it's important to just love yourself, and everything you do, you won't feel so like you'll just have less inclination to question yourself or to feel ashamed or guilty or self-loathing or all these negative things. And whatever you're doing, it will, like, however you feel, whatever you do in the state that you feel, it will manifest itself physically, reflecting the way that you feel internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, that's one of the reasons why I love supporting artists and I love getting to know artists, is because I think that's honestly, it's like one of the hardest and bravest things that you can do. a lot of people, they don't look inward and they don't do that work to like discover who they are. And so I think what you're describing there is like the process of creating music or studying any discipline. It confronts you with yourself and your challenges and your mental blocks, and through that you discover who you are, and you start to unlock your potential. And I think that's so exciting, and it's such an individual path, but it's such a shared thing that we can all kind of relate to. And in our modern society, there's not that many things like sort of in our structured society, like our jobs and our development, our schools and stuff. They're not really thinking about that that sort of philosophy of teaching and how to develop people for their sake of who they are and how to become better people. We're sort of still in this idea of like creating worker bees. I do think that the creative revolution and the nexus of creativity and technology are making these things possible. And that's something that I'm excited about Gravitas Create, to be a participant in that idea of like, how do we unlock the human potential by actually like helping people study themselves and find out who they really are through arts and discipline. So right on, man.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, cool. So let's see. I want to take a couple questions. Thanks, Garrett, for that chat there. I think Dragon Effect here, I want to take a couple of the email questions here. So he says, one second. So do you think not having a certain style and being sort of a genre-free artist, where you make anything from down tempo to heavy dubstep, melodic trance, things like that, do you feel like there's potential for someone? I mean, I guess this is, and Dragon, you can add more to it in the chat, but like I guess, how do you approach not just for the success of your career, but do you worry about, I'm trying to articulate his question more for him, of like how you're perceived as an artist, or do you just kind of go into a song and kind of just go for it, and whatever comes out comes out?
That's a good question. And I think it's important to preface that my career and my personal life, they're not really separate things. They kind of are integral to each other, and one kind of follows the other. Growing up, I didn't really have any. I had a lot of support, like as far as like allowing me to, like my parents allowing me to do different creative endeavors and explore music and stuff, but I was always told that it was not a viable career choice. So I never really thought of it for years. I never really thought of it as something that I was going to do as a career. It was always going to be something that I wanted to do as a hobby. That said, science was my second passion and still is. And I find that like electronic music production is like the perfect perfect marriage between music and science. So the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now is because I really enjoyed doing it. And that's really the number one reason. And I think going back to the question, I have a really hard time getting into a creative flow, or even finding enjoyment doing something that I feel like I have to because of someone else's agenda, or like because of some kind of system that I need to integrate into. And I've been doing the Au5 project for almost going on 8 years now. Damn. But for the majority of that time, like branding was not something that I concerned myself with. Networking was not something I concerned myself with. All I concerned myself with was finding out, just being passionate about music production, completely career independent. And I think that is what has allowed me to really explore things that I find a lot of producers nowadays are not really inclined to explore. And I think it's just because, it makes sense if you want to be successful in doing music as a career to find the one specific thing you're really good at, and then just refine that and build a brand around that and build an image around that and get it to as many people as possible. That is definitely something that can work and works, that I see does work. I personally don't find that kind of thing fulfilling. I feel like if I were to do that, maybe I would like blow up real big and then plateau, and then I would be at a point where I'm like either pigeonholing myself or just feeling like there's so much other, like I get sick of the style that I feel like I have to do because I built a brand around it. I don't want the brand to own me. I want it to be rather the other way around. If I want to be the one that dictates the brand, even if it's something that is not genre specific or caters to trends or anything like that. I mean, I think that if you do something where if you are brand focused and build your brand around something that is like one specific style or something that is trendy, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just, on a personal level, I can't do it. I think the kind of audience that you will get is a much broader audience that is not necessary. It's going to be more so quantity over quality when it comes to your audience. When you're doing something, I find like something that I'm doing, which is doing all these different styles free of genre. I'm not really concerned about brand. Rather, I find what's happening exploring all of these different styles is my truer kind of deeper voice kind of shines through that. And that's not just something that I'm doing just for other people. I'm doing that also just to discover myself. Like I want to explore as much as possible and see like what really is at the core of me, or at the core of what really is my muse that I'm channeling, essentially. I don't necessarily like to think of my music as like solely from my ego. If it's more so something that once I shed the ego, I'm able to channel. But anyway, back to the question. I find that when I'm when I'm exploring all these things, my fan base is going to be not necessarily huge, but the people that I am attracting, the audience is going to be it's more of a niche audience, and they're going to be more hardcore fans. I feel like it's quality over quantity at that point. And I personally find that I think that's cooler. I find it more enjoyable. It's less overwhelming. It's less demanding. I get to actually have, I could walk down the street and people don't recognize me occasionally if I go into like a venue or something. But I like to have the freedom of just being a normal person. I don't like to think of myself as like a famous person. I feel like it makes me too self-aware, too self-conscious. It makes me question like what it is that I'm doing, and it essentially just removes me. It just removes me from myself, really. I would rather just have, a tight-knit fan base that is really in it for the journey and not in it just because they like this one genre at this point in time because their friends do, kind of thing.
I love that answer, man. We've seen that, if you look at someone maybe like the Glitch Mob would be an example of these artists they've forged their own path. You've forged your own path. You just stayed true to who you are and the sounds that you want to make and the music that feels right to you that you want to put out. Mm-hmm. And I think some people are making a sound and then that wave or that genre starts to get some momentum and they go along with it, and that can be great. But there are, unfortunately, because of there's a lot of people want to make electronic music, people that sort of see that wave coming, okay, now I'm going to make trap, and they try to ride that in. But like you said, that those people's fans are not going to be so hardcore, and when they grow out of that phase or that sound is no longer popular, then where are they're left with not they're really kind of, oh, you so and so got pigeonholed with dubstep, but you're still making music that people are resonating with. And when we put music out for you, and I'm sort of really actively watching your socials and seeing people engage with it, it's not about the genre, it's about you and the song. And so I think that's a really big point. And so I think going back to the question is, I think it is a choice of what do you want to do. And I think there's a couple stages in your career, or a person's career, when they're sort of first getting going. You may want to try to like pick a genre, work on that, develop that sound, develop yourself as a producer. But as you really start to establish yourself as an artist, I think that you kind of have to plant your flag on what you believe in. And that may change over time. If you think about the most famous artists and how they've had to reinvent themselves over the decades and things like that, that is interesting. But they've always been able to put their spin on what that moment is, versus the other way around, of letting the sound or the fans dictate what they should make. And I think this is a big thing too. I see a lot of artists asking, what should I make next? What should I do next? I think that's fun because it's a social media thing, but ultimately I don't think that's going to serve those people well. You have to decide, you have to lead with your sound and what you believe in. So that was a really cool question. I appreciate that answer. And with that said, who let's see, I guess there was another question about vocalists. So
that was from Julian, by the way.
Okay, cool. How do you get in touch with vocalists you want to work with?
In the past, before, well, actually, I guess I still do this. I find someone that I hear on SoundCloud, or someone that is featured on another producer friend's song, or just, I don't know, anyone that I hear as a vocalist. It's pretty much just as simple as finding their social media, and finding an email, ideally some kind of contact, sending them a not too long message, something very brief to the point, saying, hey, I'm interested in your vocals. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is why I think we'd pair well together. And then send a small playlist of like 3 or 4 songs that you feel they would be good on. And I mean, that's pretty much just how I've done it every time.
I would say the personal approach is the way to go. And I manage and represent Christina Soto, and so she'll get pitches, and it's pretty surprising the variance of like quality or kind of professionalism. So it's like, you want to be professional and be considerate of their time, hence the short message. But at the same time, it's like, you don't want to be like, dear Christina Soto, it's like you want to come across like someone that she would like to work with. So
totally, yeah.
And I think another rule is like, it's artist to artist, manager to manager kind of thing. What if someone, you have management, I'm her management, oftentimes then your management and I would be talking about some of the finer points of the deal, but it's really up to you guys to make the art, and management should kind of stay out of that. So
For sure.
And I think this is an interesting question. I think people are asking for themselves. You have a discography, and you have hit songs and things like that. So that's obviously going to be compelling. So with that said, you would want to look at people that kind of match where you are in your career, in your fan base, and work together. And you're both bringing the same amount of things to the table. But that's not necessarily always true, but I did want to throw that in there. So.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think especially like starting out, it would make more sense to, do collaborate with vocalists that are kind of doing the same kind of stuff, that are featured on other artists that are doing similar stuff as you are. I mean, and then you know, and maybe when you're bigger, you do something like, you know, the whole Skrillex or Jack U and Justin Bieber kind of thing, where it's just like two completely different worlds combined, and then that's when you start a new kind of revolution. But until, and I mean, yeah, I think it's probably if you're just starting out, it's safer to do that kind of thing. I think my first vocalist that I worked with was Jazz Sparks with on Crystal Mathematics, and I first heard her on a Seven Lions song. Yeah, I first heard her on Below Us, I think that's the song. And it's from Polarized EP. It's so long ago. She also sang on Polarized as well. And I was like, wow, her voice is like so ethereal and cool. And Crystal Mathematics I thought was a perfect song for that kind of style. And so that was actually, you know, that actually was, I got in contact with her through Viper Recordings. That was the label that I released them on. So yeah, already that's the same label that released the Seven Lions EP. So that's why that connection was already there. And then, yeah, it's other vocalists that I've worked with have just been a matter of me like reaching out personally, like Tasha for Snowblind. I really didn't know, because I didn't really, I heard her on like Feed Me stuff particularly, and I was like, damn, this is unique. But I just initially thought, man, that's way out of my league, but I may as well give it a shot. And so I did, and she was down, and then we did another song, and then we have future plans for more stuff too. And so awesome. Yeah, it's just about just being upfront and real and humble.
Definitely, I like that. Do you feel like I mean, nowadays you can work virtually. At the time, was it that you wanted to get in the studio with them, and how many vocalists have you kind of worked in the studio with versus just kind of sending them a demo and then them sending you vocals?
Oh, in the studio with, you mean like in person?
Yeah.
Recording. Oh man. I don't think I've ever done that.
Wow. Awesome.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, moving on, we've got about 12 more minutes until 8. So I want to, we're going to kind of work through something. I want to get a little more technical here. I would say, let's talk a little bit about your sound design. I think, one thing some people know about you, but maybe others don't, is that you have perfect pitch. I don't know how much that's true, right?
It's kind of true. Yes, okay. But I don't really want to get too in detail.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your sound design. Do you have principles or thoughts, or at this point, I'm sure a lot of it is instinct, but if can you kind of just talk about your thought process around sound design? Do you visualize the sound? Do you have the recipes in your head? Do you just get in there and experiment? Or all of that? Do you have sound design sessions where you just sit down and go, okay, for this hour, this night, I'm going to just work on, 10 or 15 patches kind of thing?
Yeah. Lately, and I find this much more effective and efficient when it comes to actually composing, is yes, I will just open up a new project just for solely the sake of exploring stuff, not for making a song, just for exploring synths and sound design and new plugins, and just basically just having fun and going as deep as possible with it. They're basically sound design sessions. As far as like what kind of sounds, I don't know. It's really whatever I'm using at the time. And then I'll render them out as audio, or I'll save them as instrument racks or effects racks and stuff. And then when it's time for me to actually write a song, like when I have a melodic idea in my head or some kind of chord progression or something, I'll open up a new session and start to do production in the composition session. And then it's just a matter of things that I hear in my head are at this point in alignment with the large repertoire of things that I rendered out or saved in my sound design sessions. And it's just a matter of dragging those in and then doing tweaks from there, instead of just trying to just conceive of something on the spot during the compositional session, and then getting really into detail with sound design and trying trial and error and stuff that really just breaks the creative flow very quickly. And when you have a compositional idea, and you're starting to get into that flow, like it's at least for me, it's a very volatile state that is, if for instance, if I loop something too much, I don't feel it anymore. If I get distracted with something else or how something particularly sounds or is mixed, I can just lose it like that. And it's too valuable to risk losing. So my trick is to and this is something that I actually this is some advice that I got from Il Gates and watching his Il methodology videos, is make a repertoire of your sounds, separate your composition and sound design sessions. When you're ready to compose, you have your palette there. You can just start throwing down stuff and continue the pace. And I think it's important to write a song, like compositionally, try to get through the song within a matter of several hours. If you're spending any more time on the composition of it, like the arrangement and like the chord progression and melodies and stuff, you're probably overthinking it. It's probably going to get convoluted pretty fast. Get the skeleton down as quick as possible, and then do the subtle mixing, basic mixing along the way, and then doing the finer details and transitions and effects down the road. Because once the compositional flow is over, I find the composition, like the harmonic based stuff, the most volatile, and is the fastest to lose. And then after that, it's just a bunch of like systematic, strategic stuff that's just like more so logic based, as far as like getting picky with like compression and EQing and that sort of stuff.
The idea of like broad strokes, get the painting down, get your your idea there, and then later come up and firm down the details and focus on little intricate stuff to finish it out, right?
Exactly. Yeah, flesh the whole thing out. It's like it's like a sketch.
Small picture, yeah.
Yeah, sketch it and then slowly fill in. Slowly the details will fill in. Yeah, it's much more efficient. Did that answer the question? I don't even remember what the question was.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to hear about maybe just your approach to songwriting, sound design. I mean, I think specifically the question was around sound design and any techniques, but that's maybe a little hard to vocalize. I mean, like I would expect that it's like someone like in Conti, I could be like, make a sound like blah, 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 and he would be like, okay, and he would just kind of starts to go at it, and it's just kind of in his head, he's been doing it, and you've been doing it for so long. So
I mean, I definitely can expound a bit more on that if we have time.
Sure.
Cool if we push it a little bit more. As far as if there are specific sounds that I hear in my head that I haven't created yet, something that I want to create for a composition, for instance, in the rarer cases, it's important to just understand a bit how sound and synthesis works from just an acoustic point of view. Understand how decibels work, and understand what a logarithmic scale is. Also for frequencies as well, understand how the harmonic series works or the overtone series works, and not only have an understanding of those, but experiment. Like, try to make the association of what you're seeing logically and what you're feeling aurally, like what you're hearing. And once you can make those connections, once you can put two and two together, then reverse engineering things will allow you to learn so much faster. Such as one of the things I first started doing when it came to understanding sound design and synthesis was to just open up massive presets and start turning things off and turning knobs and just understanding what each thing does. Like, oh, okay, this makes it sound like wah. Why is it specifically doing that? Okay, that's a low pass filter with resonance. What's the resonance doing? What's low pass actually doing? Using spectral analyzers, finding other ways to perceive sound so that you can make broader neural connections, and so that when you hear something in your head, you're able to, it's more so second nature than it is trying to like reverse engineer what you're hearing in your head into reality, or just basically just trial and error.
So do you hear, when you hear a sound, do you visualize the sound wave, and then because you can see the sound wave, then you can sort of see the components or the oscillations and the what pieces kind of make that up?
In a way, yeah. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the synesthesia. It's basically like a crossing of senses.
Yeah.
It's something I mean, it's something that I've had since my entire life, but I find that has been something that has kind of enhanced my ability to perceive sound. Like sound is something that is not only, it's not just something that I hear, it's something that is, it's like a morphing three-dimensional textural shape that is made of light, more or less. And that in itself, being able to visualize some kind of sound, I don't know, it, like I said before, it allows me to have like a broader perspective on what it is I'm perceiving, because it's like, it's sound, but there's also some visual, tangible element to it as well. And then working with synths, it's like I can get a sense of like, it's not just sound. It's like, I know that like this wavetable has this kind of feeling, or this is like dry or wet sounding or rough, or sound is like sound design. I guess like the elements of sound design that are very prominent for me are like tone, texture, and movement, I guess, are the main things. And then finding the balance between those, the same kind of balance that you would find in like harmonic balance or rhythmic balance in the composition. I try to find that same kind of, those same kind of ratios and that same kind of balance in the types of sounds that I use, and in the textures that I juxtapose together. And like I said, over time, it's not really something that is like, I don't really like logically think of it. It's more of just an intuitive thing. I just know something needs to sound, I know something has to feel this way here. And so I can take that feeling and then extrapolate what kind of things that I know how to do logically that induce that feeling, and then apply them there. And then, yeah, it's essentially just like sculpting what I see in my head, or what I'm feeling in my body.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, would you say the synesthesia, do you think that's something that all people actually kind of have access to, if they would kind of learn to listen to themselves, or kind of learn to feel that? Or do you think that's something that some people have and some people don't?
It's hard to say, because it's something that I've had. Well, when I was younger, it was more intense. It was actually a lot more vivid, especially with like words and colors and stuff. But I think it's something that everyone has the ability to do. Although I think there are different ways, some may be questionable, of how to actually access such a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced it under the influence of psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live in it, but I know some people that do. So I would say I kind of believe that it's all there, but it's sort of like, as humans, our brains have filters to, cut out this noise or whatever. My cat keeps scratching on the door and I'm trying to ignore it. We were just bombarded by information. So we all developed these filters to kind of keep things kind of, this is my reality, this is what I need to focus on. I think it's something that you could theoretically develop if you kind of worked on it, but that's just my guess. I only have this one brain and eyes. So.
That's my guess too.
Well, cool. We're at 8 o'clock. I want to have one more question, and maybe we might have one more after that if we get on a roll. But just a broad question, and somebody that I think is pushing, as you're pushing the envelope of electronic music, and like we talked about, kind of not not planting your flag in any one genre, just making great quality music that happens to be electronic. So where do you see music as a whole going, and what do you see happening with electronic music? And then like probably the last question, like what's next for you? What are you excited about?
That's some pretty broad stuff. Music as a whole, let's see. Well, like internet music, like music that is streamed and like pop music and stuff. I feel that that is kind of what I've been noticing is it's kind of been veering towards this like I don't want to say minimalistic, but almost like more so like intimate. Things are less like in your face and screaming and more so like uh, emotional nowadays. I feel like there are a lot of things that are like slower tempos, less like cleaner sounds, also sounds that are like Foley as instrumentation. That is definitely something that is becoming part of the mainstream now. I also think borrowing from like very like styles that are not, or rather, how should I put it? I think merging styles that don't seem to have, that don't initially seem would, that don't seem like they would go together, blending elements from different styles, like putting contrasting elements together. Another something that I think that is happening, that I'm noticing in electronic music lately, is like this like resurgence of like 80s like synthwave-ish kind of styles, and I think that's pretty cool because like I don't know, it seems to be it seems to be something that seems to be an era that had a lot of innovation, but with modern technology still has so much more going for it. You know, this whole, I don't really know, I guess like mid-tempo housey stuff, like this slow, I don't really know what you'd call it. So like Porter step, I've heard some people call it, like 110, like progressive house kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That seems to be pretty popular, and also
Play It Tech. I think it's at Burning Man. It was really slow, minimalistic house stuff, but it's got a deep. There's some deep. There's some basic melody there, and it's kind of, I don't know. It's not trancy, but you can. It's a little tribal. You can kind of lose yourself in it pretty easy.
yeah, it's like a, it's kind of like if you slowed down psytrance. I feel like you slowed down psytrance like 100, it would have a very similar, you'd get a very similar like vibe from that as like this style that I'm referring to. Um, yeah, as far as like what was the other thing?
What's next for you? What do
Oh,
you
what's
what
next
do
for
you got?
well, I'm sitting on stupid amounts of music, uh, a lot of different styles. I have an EP that is pretty much just like all down tempo, very jazzy, soulful stuff, which not really anyone has really heard before. I guess like imagine like a combination between like like what's the word? Like Watership and like House Party EP. That's a really old one of mine. Um, so that's something I'm stoked about, and I'm considering an LP to come out like near, like probably in the spring or summer. I have a collab EP with Mr. Bill plus a bunch of remixes that's coming out next month at the end of February. That I'm super stoked about that. I think the word has been out for a while, but for those of you who don't know, yeah, we made a 5-track EP, 10 tracks with remixes, and it's probably the weirdest, most experimental musical stuff that we've ever made and that I think I've ever heard. And so I'm really excited to hear what people, I'm really excited to see the responses that people will have from that, because it's pretty out there. So yeah, as far as like overall the AU5 vision goes, I mean, I don't know. I'm still figuring that out too. It's a journey for me as it is for everyone else, and I think that's the cool thing. It's like whatever I'm doing or whatever people are experiencing from me, I'm also, it's also new for me too. It's like I'm not just giving them something. It's like people are coming with me on this journey that I'm navigating, this path that I'm navigating. So who knows? It can go anywhere.
Awesome. Everyone in the chat, I dropped a bunch of links here. We've got some in the DAWs that Austin did. We've got his most recent remix that came out on Enhanced. We've got both the Freefall and the Freefall Remixed. And then we got all of his socials. Make sure to follow him. And yeah, we've got, I'll just link to the, also the tutorial that he did for the sample pack. Free falling towards the glue. Yeah, we want to just thank everybody for coming. We appreciate everybody's questions, and we'll be, we recorded this, and yeah, Austin, thank you so much, man. You really, I love that you're so open and share yourself with everyone. Thank you for your time and your music. And
yeah, my pleasure, man. This has been a blast. Thank you.
Cool
for doing this.
And then, yeah, I want to just a couple other pieces for Gravitas Create. We've got right now, there's a 30% off coupon, and we've got a goal setting link in the chat. So this is something we're trying out. We want you guys to set your musical goals, and if you see anything in the store, you got 30% coupon off there. And then we've got a 6-week, well, it's actually 7 weeks production challenge. And so that walks you through basically the very genesis of a track all the way to picking a music distributor and the marketing of that. It's a series of emails and I'm basically referencing some of the best tutorials and advice from around the internet from all time that we've curated, and then some advice from myself on how to work with a label and things like that. So yeah, we'd love your feedback, and appreciate everyone stopping by tonight, and have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.